"Welcome the timeless forgotten mystery," she said firmly. "I'm not going to pay the fine. Do whatever you want." The judge tried to calm her down, saying he would help her by arranging a payment plan so she could pay in installments, but the woman's attitude remained rude and defiant. She crossed her arms and repeated, "Do whatever you want, I'm not paying." Judge Frank Caprio, a man known across the world for his kindness and compassion, felt something he almost never did: anger. For the first time in his courtroom, his calm smile faded. Though this incident was never publicly recorded, Judge Caprio himself later wrote about it in his book, and what happened afterward completely changed the course of his life forever. Welcome once again to another story on ZMTV. Who could have imagined that a boy who once polished shoes on the streets while going to school would one day become known as the world's nicest judge? Watching Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, it's hard to believe that behind that warm smile, that kindness and laughter, lay years of struggle and deep emotional scars. Frank Caprio served as the Chief Judge of the Municipal Court of Providence, Rhode Island, from 1985 to 2023, a remarkable 38 years of justice and humanity. His fame spread through the reality TV show court in Providence, where he presided over small traffic violation cases, speeding, parking tickets, red light offenses. But what made him different was not the law he enforced, it was the heart behind his verdicts. He often joked with the defendants, smiled, forgave fines, and even invited children accompanying their parents to decide the rulings. His courtroom was often filled with laughter, compassion, and warmth instead of fear and punishment. Once, a 96-year-old man appeared in his courtroom for speeding in a school zone. When the judge gently asked why he was speeding, the old man's eyes filled with tears. He said, "I was driving my 63-year-old son to the hospital. He has cancer." Without hesitation, Judge Caprio dismissed the case and wished the man strength. That single moment, captured on video, touched millions around the world. His kindness became his identity, not only in America but in many countries, where other judges began to see him as an inspiration. But behind this gentle smile was a story of hardship and pain that shaped the man he became. After retiring in 2023, Frank Caprio was diagnosed with cancer. During that time, he began writing his book Compassion in the Court, published in 2025. In it, he shared a story from long before he was born, a story about his grandparents that deeply influenced his view of justice. His grandparents had migrated from Italy to Providence. They were uneducated and extremely poor. His grandfather sold fruit from a cart on the street to survive. One day, after drinking with friends and causing a disturbance, he was arrested. Frank's grandmother borrowed money from neighbors and went to court to plead for her husband's release. In broken English and hand gestures, she tried to offer the judge the borrowed money as a fine. Beside her stood their young son, Tap, who could understand a little English. The judge called the boy forward and said softly, "Take your parents home. They are free to go." The boy translated this to his mother, who began crying and blessing the judge as they walked away. That little boy was none other than Frank Caprio's father, Antonio Tap Caprio Jr. Frank would later say, "Even though this happened before I was born, that story shaped me. Every time I see immigrants in my courtroom, I remember my grandparents. I try my best to ensure they never feel humiliated or helpless." Tap grew up in a single small flat with no running hot water. 12 people shared one room, and only one dim lamp lit the space. He had to leave school in 7th grade to help his father earn a living. The family was so poor that sometimes, they joked, their pockets were full of cotton instead of coins. But as Frank later wrote, "We didn't even have the cotton." Frank Caprio was born on November 24, 1936. He grew up in the same cold, cramped room with his father Tap and his mother Philomena. They had no bathroom and no hot water. If they wanted a shower, they had to walk miles. During the Great Depression, Tap tried everything, selling fruits, running small carts, but nothing lasted. Eventually, he found work distributing milk, and young Frank began helping him from an early age. One freezing morning when Frank was 8, he delivered milk to the house of a wealthy classmate. As he knocked on the door, shivering with hunger, the smell of toast and butter drifted from inside. His classmate sat at the breakfast table crying, being scolded by his father. The man pointed at Frank standing outside with milk bottles and said to his son, "Be grateful. Otherwise, you could have been like that boy, carrying milk in the snow." Frank never forgot those words. 8 decades later, he wrote in his book that those words cut deeper than the winter cold. Despite the hardships, Frank always remained grateful. His parents' love and lessons made him strong. During winter nights, the family had no blankets. The milk company gave them one blanket to wrap around the milk bottles so they wouldn't freeze. At night, Frank and his brother would share that same blanket. Since it was stained with cream, every night mice would come to lick it, and young Frank would lie awake in fear. When he turned 16, his father placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "One day, you will become a lawyer. But promise me, never take money from the poor." That promise shaped Frank's entire career. To support himself through high school, he worked multiple part-time jobs, helping his father deliver milk, selling newspapers, setting bowling pins, waiting tables, and shining shoes on the roadside. After high school, he managed to get into college, an incredible achievement for someone from such a poor background. Out of 45 cousins, only 2 made it to college, and Frank was one of them. In his final year, he dreamed of joining Boston University's law school. He was accepted, but he knew his parents could never afford the tuition. So instead of following his dream, he took a teaching job during the day and attended a cheaper law program at night. During this time, he faced a humiliation he would never forget. One night, after class, a classmate offered him a ride home. When they arrived, the friend saw Frank's small, run-down apartment and said, "If you want to be a successful lawyer, you can't live in a place like this." Frank smiled politely, said thank you, and walked away. But that remark stayed with him forever. After becoming a lawyer, he entered politics and even ran for Attorney General. But his opponents spread false rumors, accusing him of links to organized crime, forcing him to withdraw. He returned to private law practice. One day, while having lunch, he received a call from the mayor of Providence. The mayor said, "One of our municipal judges has been transferred. There's an open seat now. I think you'd be perfect for the job." Frank couldn't believe it. It was the proudest moment of his life, and his parents. Tapp, who never missed any of his son's wrestling matches, came to the courtroom that first day to see his boy sit as a judge. The very first case was that of a woman with several unpaid parking tickets worth hundreds of dollars. She walked in angry and defensive, telling the judge, "I'm not paying. I have kids to feed." Frank patiently placed her on a payment plan so she could pay in small amounts. But she snapped again, "I told you, I'm not paying." For the first time, Judge Caprio lost his composure. He ordered her car immobilized until the fines were paid and dismissed the case. Later, his father Tapp scolded him. "How will that woman take her kids to school now? How will she buy groceries?" Tapp was disappointed. That day, Frank realized his father was right. He would later say, "My father's anger taught me more than 5 years of law school ever did." From that day onward, he vowed never to judge anyone without understanding how his decision would affect their family. Soon, he created a donation system called the Philomena Fund, named after his mother. It helped poor people who couldn't afford their fines. His courtroom became a place not just of justice, but of mercy and understanding. The TV show Court in Providence was born by chance. Frank's brother Joe, who loved filming, got the idea to record courtroom proceedings. Frank initially refused, saying court was not entertainment. But Joe insisted, and eventually Frank agreed. The show aired locally, and when clips later spread online, they went viral. Millions saw the compassionate judge who listened, forgave, and smiled. For 38 years, Judge Frank Caprio served with dignity, empathy, and humor. In January 2023, he retired from his position. A few months later, he announced that he was battling cancer. On August 20th, 2025, he appeared in a video from his hospital bed, asking his fans for prayers. The next day, August 21st, 2025, the world's kindest judge took his final breath. He left behind not just a courtroom legacy, but a timeless lesson in compassion, mercy, and humanity. His life taught the world that justice without kindness is empty, and anger without control is dangerous. Through every smile, every act of forgiveness, Judge Frank Caprio showed that being kind is the greatest form of strength.